Right, we've come to half past, which is a nominal time, so we'll make a start. Uh, You should have seen when you logged in that this meeting's being recorded, so if there's anything contentious, maybe use the language of Jane Austen would be advisable because it'll be recorded for posterity. Uh, and like to thank Malcolm and John for offering to take us through the SBA Services casting library and other standard designs to give us an idea of the possibilities therein. So, oh, one other thing.
Oh,
Hello. The other thing is I have a further
voice problem.
meeting arranged for the 28th of October, a bit far in advance. We have got a chap called Bob Branson who has done quite a lot of research on injectors, and he'll talk to us about injectors and ejectors. So that's something to put in the diary, and I'll send round a note about that shortly. So, Malcolm, John, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Brian. We might repeat the thing about putting your mics on mute unless you're actually talking, because the background noise gets severe. Up here in the fells, the only thing you're going to hear is a lot of Swaledale sheep. If they get too intrusive, I'll turn my microphone off. Until then, we'll start. Mike, can you pop your mic on? Thank you. So first of all, we should say, as the SBAS, thank you to Brian for organising all this. It's the first time we've ever done it, but it seems like an excellent idea. I'm guessing you know John and I tend to spend a lot of time on my hind legs talking, which is a problem. John is much more useful. He's a time-served precision engineer, an ex-merchant marine engineer, and generally sound mechanical person. Fixes things I can't. So what I thought we were going to, and I should say the reason I'm here is I'm secretary of the SBAS and treasurer for my sins. And so that's why you get me. My plan is to use the website, so you're going to not have to watch me for much longer, to explain what's going on so we can look at things that are there. We're going to talk, as Brian asked, for us to look at the castings library principally. So boating castings, the engine castings, and the hull drawings that we've got in the library. So we're not going to talk about boilers and boiler testing unless anybody at the end wants us to run through some of those designs or anything, then we can certainly do that. So first of all, let me see if I can show you what I'm looking at, which is this. Hopefully you can now see a picture of the Steamboat Association website. Of course, nobody will be able to tell me that because you're all muted. But if somebody gave me a thumbs up, then, yeah, I don't know. Mike Cole, can you see the website? Good, because you're the only person I can see here. Right, so Steamboat Association website you're all familiar with. Over the last few months, everybody's complained that they can never find the SBAS pages. So subject to the committee agreeing, we're going to put it in a more obvious place. But right now, if you go along to Steamboats and slide down, then there's a tab called SBA Services Limited. And if I click on that, you wind up with an introduction page, which I'm going to use to make a slight introduction, because I find myself having to say this repeatedly because there's a lot of confusion. SBA Services Limited is a limited company. It's not the SBA. It's an independent, not-for-profit company set up at the instigation of the SBA in 1991 to provide services to steamboaters. It's set up like that, so if anything really bad happens while we're testing on boilers, somebody's got their mic on, then if anybody if anything bad happens, then nobody in the SBA or the SBA committee or anybody else is liable because we're a separate company. If I could just quickly repeat, somebody's got their microphone turned on. You hear a lot of background chatter. It makes it.
Going to hospital and things like that, but I was out of work as well, and I thought, have you had any problems with
So the SBAS is a separate company. Trevor, could you put your microphone on mute, please? And
Mr. Isa, we're talking to you and Mr. Trevor.
excellent. Quieter. Good. So the SBA is set up as a separate company, and just to keep the SBA safe. And so, sort of in the business. I can't beat the talking in the back.
If you look at the participants, Malcolm, you should be able to mute all somewhere and then unmute yourself.
Yes, I found it. Well done. Yeah, that seems better. Sorry. So, our principal game is providing cost-effective boiler tests, and that's what we do most of the time and where we spend most of our money. The fact was we wound up with a lot of patterns that have been donated to us, and so we operate the library, both patterns, castings, and drawings, purely as a mechanism of offsetting our costs to try and reduce the costs of the actual boiler test. That's the only reason we do it. And as this page says here, we have a library of boiler drawings, which we're not going to talk about tonight. We have a library of hull drawings bequeathed to us by the estate of Glyn Lancaster Jones. We've also got a library of patterns. We're going to talk about hulls and patterns, and also some patterns for some engines. So let's do it in the order that I think Brian suggested. So if we go and look at the SBA castings library, we'll just walk through each of these to give you a feel what's going on. As a by the way, that's a hand pump that was Daniel. Can you mute your mic? Not doing it. What you're looking at is a set of a hand pump. Just silence Daniel. There you go. A hand pump, and that's actually pattern number 12. We'll go and look at that in a bit. First of all, we should just explain how the ordering process works. And it's really, really simple. At the bottom of this page, there is a link. And if you click that link, it will create an email for you with places where you can fill in the information. The way we do this, because of course the prices are entirely dependent on cost of materials, and they go up and down as bronze and other things move in price. So the way you do it is you place an order on us, we give you a formal quote, and if you choose to go ahead from that point, you send us the money, we order the castings, and it'll all get delivered. What I'm going to do here is just go through these quickly. If anybody has any particular questions about any one, then stick your hand up. John is here principally because he knows more than I do, and so he can fill in any background. So the first one is a Klinger gauge glass, and I think everybody believes these are far safer than the round glass variety. Basically, you've got a flat, thick plate of glass, inch or two wide, 6 or 8 inches tall, that's held behind that plate with the hole in it. And then the fittings to the boiler go on the back. I actually built mine using those castings, but actually following a drawing from John King, which he produced for the Yarrows, and which have three-way cocks built into the back of the gauge. And some of the inspectors don't like those because, as Mr. Davis points out to me, cocks should hang down, and in Mr. King's design they stick out, and that wasn't favoured. But it's a very nice thing to do, very easy. You can use separate cocks and plumbing to fit it. You got anything else to say about these, John?
No, nothing more than what you said. I mean, the traditional gauge glasses. My argument with John King's design was the cocks rather than the glass.
Yes.
Part of it, you know. There are two kinds here. There's number one, which is where the water and steam comes in at the back. Number two can be arranged with the on a longer gauge, with them coming in at the ends. And number three is for the smallest A1s, 1A size, which is really quite small, which is also usually arranged with them at the ends. But yeah, you can play around as you like, provided they're safe.
One question is how do they interface to, say, if you put it on the drum end of a water tube boiler? I'm assuming the ones that interface at the ends need the traditional fittings to fit into, like you see them sometimes on traction engines. But is there a way, the ones that interface from the back, what sort of fitting do they have into the drum end? Is that, I wondered if it was a banjo, or is it a more direct connection?
It's a direct connection. That's how I did it. In fact, I think number one has enough meat on the ends to actually allow it to be fitted either from top and bottom or from the rear. In my case, I actually machined those rear bosses to hold a pair of plug cocks, which was Mr. King's design. I know other people have built them and used a pair of ball cocks and then screw them directly into the drum end of a water tube boiler, because mine's a Yarrow water tube boiler.
Okay, is that with some sort of union then, Malcolm, or is that? I was just wondering how it assembles.
You know, I can't remember.
Well, yeah, obviously you've got to have some kind of union, otherwise you won't be able to assemble it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a fairly straightforward, simple way of doing it. Yeah, that's what I've got on my boiler.
Thinking back, John King's design has a through hole in the end of the drum end plate, and there's a pipe that's nutted on the inside with doughty washers on the outside to provide the seal, and in my case another set of doughty washers against a spacer. Yeah, I think that's how it's done.
Ah, okay, that clarifies it. Thanks.
Okay, so you've got those sorts of things, and there are core boxes, of course, to go with the things above that allow the casting foundry to be able to do the job. And then we've got a pair of Klinger cock bodies and handles. John, do you have anything to say about those?
Well, these are these are to build your own AB10 Klinger cocks. You can actually buy the handles come spindles still, and of course you can buy the packings. The cock bodies, it's a bit of a tricky job to make them because they have to have a groove in them to stop the packings rotating. But it's not impossible. With a bit of care, you can make them. They're quite good.
Because they're not a plug cock, are they? They're not a tapered plug cock. They're more
No,
complicated.
they're a parallel clinger cock. Clingers don't make it the 10s now, but you can actually get them because the drain cocks on the gauges marketed by the people that sell the ready-made ones, whose name escapes me just this moment. Chanta Biomed make them, well, sell them anyway. So you can get the packings from anywhere. You can even get them from Heritage Steam Supply if you've got
A lot of money.
Bank badness, yeah.
I would say that in the drawing pack, I know we're not talking about boilers, but in the drawing pack that goes with John King's boilers, he has included a full set of drawings for cocks and manifolds and all sorts of things. It was a very comprehensive set. The next one down, number 7, I don't recognise that at all, John.
That's the top fitting for a gauge glass of more traditional style.
Says you can use it for either, yeah?
Yeah. The one where you can see the diameter end facing you, that's where the cock is. That is the cock body, that, yeah. And the other bit is is where the glass goes in. No, that's where it screws on the boiler. Yeah. Obviously it's 90 degrees out of phase as it would be assembled. And then at the other end you have a tap towel for pushing the glass into.
Brian, you
Yes,
raised
just another question. On, I guess it's a general question. How do we understand the sizes of these? For instance, in terms of the boiler interface, I assume that's a BSP size or design it.
Well,
Would that come out as 3/8 or quarter or half-inch BSP, roughly, to get an idea of the size?
I couldn't tell you at the top of my hand. I can go and find one if you like. That won't take me very long, and I need to go anyway. So I'll be back in a minute. Just talk amongst your friends. You talk amongst yourselves. I've always wanted to say that.
Just to go back to these two to get a feel for it, these things fit on the top drums of the 2-drum and 3-drum boilers. So I'm guessing they're about, holding his hands apart, 7 or 8 inches high, the first two. So John is now rummaging through his stores. He'll show up with one any second, I'm sure.
I guess that's something it would be useful to have in this table, Malcolm, of just give an idea of the size.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is that you can make them pretty much as you like within bounds of the metal that's there. So for the clinger ones, certainly I'm pretty sure I use 3/8 BSP. You know, but as you say, I mean, the hand pump, for example, the one I showed you right at the top of the screen, which we'll get to, number 12, will take pretty much an inch bore. I sort of pushed it as far as I could because I wanted a larger hand pump. But, you know, the drawing that comes with it shows something a bit smaller. While John's gone, we'll just quickly touch on the whistle manifold. So pretty obvious what it is, really. If you've got 2 whistles, that's how you put them on. The core box is not something for sale, that's just part of that casting. There's a bilge ejector that I think is probably sort of 13mm-ish, because you're probably into copper fittings at that point. But again, John will return and tell us, I'm sure. while we're waiting. This was the hand pump I was talking about, the one I showed you at the top of the screen, and so that's got a stroke of about 3 or 4 inches and a bore of anything up to about 1 inch. I didn't build mine with a gland on the end, as this suggests. I just put O-rings on the ram, and that worked quite well. And it doesn't have included valves in it. The idea is you put external clacks, and I initially used some sand cast ones from valve tubes and fittings, but eventually changed them to some straight stainless ones in 3/8 BSP, and that worked very well.
I'm back.
Have you got a picture of what you got there, John?
I've got it in my hand.
Can nobody else can see that? I'm going to stop sharing this screen and then.
Oh, sorry. That's the what is nominally a top fitting. This is the bit which you put the thread on for screwing into the boiler. That's where the clinger cock goes in, and then that is like that, and one half is where the gauge gas goes on, and the other half will be tapped with a plug for assembly.
John, I don't know if you heard there were questions about sizes of some of this, like what BSP sizes would that take?
Well, looking at it here now, I'd say it could be 1/2 inch. Probably you may 1/2 inch would be the normal size for this size of gauge glass, or you could obviously make it smaller. Oops. Right.
I'm going to return to the screen here.
That's a finished clinger size 10 cock. Well, it's not finished, but it's finished components. As you can see, that's quarter BSP at that end, 3/8 at that end, and that's the pattern for the same with the body anyway. That's number 5. So they're fairly changeable. As I say, this has got quite a big thing on there, so you can turn it down to 1/2 inch would be common. I don't think you want to go much above that, would you?
We should point out that on the website, it tells you what the castings are in, and it sort of says LG4 or CI or whatever. LG4 being gunmetal, is that right, John, or is that?
Yeah, leaded gunmetal.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Whereas the thing you're holding in your hand is aluminium, because that's the pattern.
That's an aluminium pattern, yeah. It's rather an ambitious one, really. I thought it would have been made split, but for some reason or another it isn't. But most of the modern foundries nowadays don't seem to be too worried about that.
Right, I'll put the screen back on and we can wander on down. There you go. So we quickly talked about the whistle manifold, although again I don't have a feel for sizes there. John, do you think they're 3/8 or something like that? We can't hear you.
Sorry, I think they're 3/8.
Yeah.
But I mean, if anybody emails me with an inquiry, I can tell them all the details then.
And you can do that by emailing castings@steamboatassociation.co.uk. And then we've got a bilge ejector body.
Yes, that's quite good. I've just made one of those for one of our northern friends for a boat called anachronism, which is a good name for a steamboat, I suppose. And it looks quite good. We've not actually fitted it yet, but it's a nice job because there's a core with it, and therefore you don't have to spend a lot of time boring out the innards. But it is just the body. You have to make your own nozzles and so forth for it, but that's not a big deal, really.
Does it come with a drawing, John, or not?
There is a drawing with that, yeah, because I made one for this other one, so I'll give that free with the with anybody who wants one.
While you were gone, we talked a little bit about the Ian Cross one, and I made that. This one, we actually show a set of S&D. Somerset and Dorset? No.
Suction and discharge, old tap.
I guess. I didn't use those. I just used the base casting and screwed on some external clacks. So it takes anything up to an inch, I think. Actually, probably 26, I think I went to. That works very well.
Yeah, I've just made one for another boat called Williamette, and that. But I've kept that to 20 mil bore, mainly because I've got a 20 mil bore reamer. If the only snag with having a bore an inch or even higher is you need an awful long lever, or you have to be very strong.
Let me tell you, at 250 psi, we went for a long lever because I'm no longer very strong. But it works well. It's a good tool. And then we've got...
As this is one you've made several recently from, how much does the casting work out at roughly in broad terms?
One of the few I know, and that was £150.
Okay, that puts things in perspective.
That was in 2023, so I don't know whether bronze prices have gone up or down since then. Basically, the way we do it is we do cost and put a 30% margin on it because it's trying to generate money to help with the boiler testing costs and post and packing. That's all. So, for example, I've just built a vertical feed pump, which is a lot like the Southworth one, but made from patterns by Ian Cross. And we'll sell you one of those for 180 because we've got a set on the shelf. If you went and bought the genuine Southworth ones, I think they're 460 now, but they are in gunmetal, so your choice. Handrail stanchions for 5/8 tube, 2-inch centre height. Look, we've got dimensions on it. We've won.
Well, as I say, anything you need clarifying, just drop me an email, no problem.
I used 4 of those on the boiler on Beaver just to provide handrails on the lid because we've got the dog kennel style housing to provide handles for crew going up and down the boat. Very effective because the tube just slides in on and they just bolt in from underneath. A steam manifold for 3/4 BSP. That's sizable stuff. Anybody do anything in 3/4? Presumably anachronism has, John. Can't hear you.
I'm sorry, my antique clock was just making its presence felt. No, this is another one of Ian's. I don't know what it was intended for.
And then we've got a couple of engine castings. We'll come and talk about the engine drawings in a bit, but these are for the Taylor T2 engine. Is that right, John?
No, this is for the big one of the big Taylor engines.
Oh, okay.
These actually came from a chap who sold me an engine, not unfinished engine, and he just threw these in as well. So I've never actually used them, but there's no reason why they shouldn't work. For the big 3x4 sort of size engine, same as in oh, sorry, brain's gone. Bluebell's got a compound version, but I think these were off a single cylinder one, and the only one I know is that guy down in Cornwall. He's got a very nice big engine. It's for sale as well. The boat's for sale. Can't remember the name, damn it. But it's the guy, the hairdresser from Cornwall. From
Moon Dance is the boat.
Moon Dance, yes, indeed it is.
Been sold to Holland.
Has it? Oh, it's been sold. All right. Oh, of course, you did the boiler for it, didn't you, Kevin?
Affirmative.
It's yeah, a very nice boat.
Then we've got a pair of stern glands. So I guess everybody knows what a stern gland is. Screw on the outside of the bolt and hold the propeller in place for shafts up to 1 inch, which is most boats. I think we ran 1.25 inch in beefer, but that's because it's something like 9 feet long, the prop shaft. So they're just stern lines. A dished hand wheel.
Well, yes, I don't know what you'd use that for, but there it's there, so somebody might want it.
You occasionally find engines with screw reversers, don't you? Might work for that.
Yes, I always think they look better with the old sort of old-fashioned lathe type handle, you know, with a ball at one end and a handle at the other.
Yes.
If you know what I mean. But then that's just my strangeness.
And then we've got a pair of castings if you're feeling like making your own engine from scratch and you're just looking for cylinder covers. Then there's a pair here, 2.5 and 3.5.
Yeah, they're just odd things that are in the box kind of thing, you know.
And then we've got an oil cup for sort of main bearings typically. Is that right, John?
Well, yeah, I mean they're just conventional old-fashioned oil cups with a flip lid, you know.
Yeah. And a lid. Get a cast lid for it. Very nice too. There's another hand pump here.
Yeah, this is a bit smaller than the other. This is one that Bill Hall made. I think he must have made the pattern himself. I don't know. And it's all right. Yeah, it works all right. It's the same kind of setup as the other one.
And then we've got a keel condenser header. So these obviously bolt onto the outside of the boat, are designed to take the tubes of the keel condenser and provide fitted with through-hole fittings. So there's nothing clever about this. This is just a lump of metal of an appropriate shape to turn into a header.
That's it. I think that was off Edward's boat. Whippet, yeah.
With that had large triple in it that he made.
Yeah, it's got a Elliott Bay triple. Yeah.
Right. The next one is
God knows what it is now.
Sorry. No. Next one is a lubricator box, sort of traction engine style in my mind. Must confess, the black bit confuses me.
That's it. What they call a core print. It leaves a space in the sand, and then you have what they call a core that fits in there and also goes in where the hole needs to be in the middle of the box.
Yes.
Not explaining it very well. Yeah, you don't have any drawings or anything for this. It's just there if anybody wants to.
Do you have a feel for the size of it, John?
Yes, it's about 3 inches wide by 2 inches deep by about 4 inches high, that sort of size.
And then a gland follower. These are like the ones on, not on 6As, but
Yeah, they're just 2 stud gland followers. They're fairly common item used on a lot of things, engines or whatever. They're various sizes.
and they're elliptical tops, because that's not obvious.
Yeah.
There's 3 of those. The crosshead guide bar for a bellis.
Yeah, I got Ian to make this for me actually when I was building that 15 horsepower bellis, which is now in anachronism. And I thought I'd just add it in anyway, but it's quite a big chunk.
Yeah. And in CI, so cast iron. As is the next, which is a valve spindle guide. This isn't actually for a 6A, is it? Similar?
No, it's not. It's very similar to the 6A guide.
And then a couple of spoked hand wheels. If you're running short.
Yeah, there's 2 sizes of those. I've actually got some of those available. I think the smaller size, if anybody wants one.
And then a slide valve. That is actually the D valve, isn't it?
Yes, this is another one that was off the big Taylor.
And then the core box that goes with it, which the casting foundry will need.
Yep.
And then some bearings for that same larger Taylor.
Yeah.
If you've got 1.5 inch crank journals, that'll be your animal. A smaller keel condenser. This just takes a single tube. I think the other one was for 3, wasn't it, John?
Yeah.
3 times 22 or 28, something like mil, like that. And then a flanged version of a similar animal, and then a larger flanged one, and then one with 2 tubes.
Yep.
The tiller arm, yeah, 300, so it's a foot long scale of, isn't it? Foot and a bit.
Yeah, I think that was built for Bill Hall's boat. I'm not sure. I think so.
Okay. Okabis. And this always strikes me as looking like a ratchet without the guts in it. Socket ratchet.
Well, yeah, it's just a handy thing if you want one.
Yes. If you've got a hole that shape in your life, you can have one of those. And a large lubricator box.
Yeah, I'm just making one of these at the moment. This is my design.
Similar sort of size to the other, sort of 2x3.
Yeah, no, it's a bit bigger. It's 3 wide, 4 high, and about 6 long. It's the ones I've built. I built one for anachronism, and I'm building a second one now. And they take 3 these precision pumps that a lot of people use nowadays.
Lube tech type.
Sorry?
The lube tech type, do you mean?
Yes, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I build them, I use 3 pumps, and one's for the cylinder direct, and the other 2 go into manifolds, and then I use something like 13 to 8 to 15 outlets, each with its own metering valve on it. So they're different sizes depending on the size of the bearing. They work very well.
Certainly we use them on beefer, although because I spent a lot of time replacing camshafts on Pinto engines in the 70s, we put 12 pumps in, one for every bearing.
Well, yeah, a lot of people do that, but A, it's expensive, and B, I've had no trouble whatsoever with these flow valves. And you can get various sizes with them. They're very good.
Yeah.
I've had them for years on my boat, and I've put them on virtually every engine I've built, which is quite a few.
It is. So eccentric rods with palms on them for small engine, 80 mil top to bottom.
Yes, I've no idea where these came from. They're quite small, but I could give anybody the size in detail who'd be interested.
Okay, and so 46 and 47 is each of those. And lastly, fire bars. People often looking for fire bars.
Yeah, it's quite a small thing. I mean, you can make your own patterns for things like this, can't you?
Just as a by the way, because you bring it up, modern technology being what it is, when I was at the foundry in Huddersfield last year doing the vertical pump castings, they have 3D printers stuck on the shelf, and they make their patterns directly using that, because they're getting customers who want logos and initials and stuff cast on the outside, and so it's easiest to do that. But John Napton produced patterns for myself and Paul Self for sirens, and we've seen some other good 3D printed patterns as well. So that's where the world's going. Yeah,
that's the way to do it now. The only thing anybody who tries it themselves is that they must have a fairly smooth finish on them, because the first one I was involved with, the foundry said, oh, it's much too coarse. And when I pull the pattern out of the sand, it brings some of the sand away with it. I mean, it wouldn't in the case of industrial pattern making, casting, because they all use all kinds of fancy resins and stuff. But if it's just a green sand molding, then that is a thing. So you need to have a fairly smooth finish on the sides of it pattern.
And on that note, as I discovered when I had to cast a new crank for the leak compound, because just in case anybody tells you otherwise, the fabricated ones fall apart within a couple of hours. And so I've cast two cranks, one for me, one for Guy in Holland, cast them in SGI, spheroidal graphited iron or something. And the foundry pointed out that rather than with traditional grey cast iron, you really don't have to fret about shrinkage anymore. Providing you've put sufficient allowance for machining on, then that'll be fine, because the actual shrinkage between pattern and casting is the order of 1 or 2%. So we talked about how you get any of this, and as you see at the bottom of the page, it says get a quote for your castings by clicking this link. And if you do, somewhere else on my screen, there you go, it'll produce an email automatically to John and I, and you could just fill in your name and your address, the casting, pattern number and quantity, press send, and we will send you back a quote. That takes a little while because we have to run it past the foundry, but it's as easy as that. And then we will include packing and postage in that, and happy new castings will show up at your door. Before we go on and talk about engines and hulls, has anybody got any questions on the boat castings, for want of a better phrase? No.
There was one thing, Malcolm, in terms of the one supported by drawings, how do we understand that? Is that just a matter of asking?
Probably is.
Yeah.
I mean, well, it's certainly worth asking if you're going to make something with it to get a feel for the size, and then John can tell you whether or not, if you put that in that email, we'll tell you what's available or suggest suitable commercial drawings that would fit with it. Trevor, you were about to ask something, I think.
Well, it's really just a quick comment about the 3D printing. We've got an interesting problem up at Bliss Hill, not with a steamboat, but it's casting related. So we have a cylinder head, which with a water jacket in it, and we're looking to do a 3D print of that, and then shell mold it and use the 3D print as a total loss pattern.
Yeah.
Has anyone come across doing that in your experience, and does it work?
I haven't any experience other than I can tell you when I was at Hutchinson's in Huddersfield, they were busily producing cylinder heads for diesel engines.
Right.
Can't think of anything more complicated than that.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very simple version of that. Is it's a single cylinder. It's a 50 horsepower Fielding. So it just has a big combustion chamber surrounded by an upturned bucket, if you like, or a bucket laid on its side because it's horizontal.
Yeah.
But it has obviously the injector port, the cooling ports, and there's no heater plug. Oh, the hot bulb. So it is a heater plug of sorts.
Right.
So a little bit complicated. But yeah, we're hoping we can get a probably either Meonite or an SG iron cylinder head cast from that, so we've got minimum shrinkage. We'll see how we go.
John, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, not really my field.
Okay.
But I wanted, I've not really. I mean, last time I was in a foundry was many years ago. Apart from that one I went in the other month. No, it's a bit of a black art as far as I'm concerned. The best bet would be to get in touch with a foundry and see what they say. The one that Malcolm mentioned at Huddersfield sounds as though it'd be right up their street.
Yeah. If you speak to, I think it's Keith or Kevin, I can get you an email address, but you'll find it referenced off the blog for BIFA, which is referenced for every email I ever send out.
Right.
Keith, I think it's Keith, might be Kevin, the guy, he's managing director, extraordinarily helpful guy.
Right. Okay. Just
so he's
quick note. So that's Keith, and what was the company called?
Hutchinson and something else. Let me just get it here because you can see it. So if I went to BIFA, a second. Suppliers, Kilner and Hutchinson.
Kilner and Hutchinson.
And they only do ferrous, so cast iron and SGI. They don't do non-ferrous at all, but they're extraordinarily good. The only glitch I had with them was on the second crank. I posted them the pattern, and I put jacking screws between the web to save it from the problem of the postman. And I did say that, but they cast it with the jacking screws in place.
Yeah, I thought right. Yeah. So we had someone do exactly that with a back axle for a traction engine recently. Someone took the old axle away and very carefully scanned it, machined it, and made exactly the same as the old worn-out knackered one within a few microns. So now the guy's having to make step keys, and he only machine tool he has is arms and set of files. So I've offered to make him a set of step keys for it now.
A tough game, that.
Yeah. So anyway, there we go. Right, that's very helpful. Thank you very much for that.
Right, I'll go on and talk about. Do we have another question?
Not from me.
I thought I heard somebody, but maybe not. So let's go and talk about drawings and castings for engines. John, you may as well just take this one because you know all about these and I don't.
Okay, can you put the oh, you've already done it. Sorry. We have a couple of engine drawings, some with certain castings, some without certain castings. The first one mentioned there is a single cylinder engine, which was partly designed by Ian Cross, and he started making it, and then he's now gone on to the dark side and does a lot of work with the Corris Railway. And he's not interested in boats anymore. So he actually he sort of donated the bits to this engine. Is the patterns are his pattern making is excellent. They're excellent patterns, as you could see from the screen. The only thing, it actually only half designed it. It'd done the bed plate, crankshafts assembly and all that. And in fact, we've actually got a bed plate assembly.
Let me find that a second, because you said
that he sort of donated. Unfortunately, he hadn't done anything much with the top end, with the cylinders. So I've made a start on designing some suitable cylinders for it, because it's a nice job. It looks right, you know. It looks as good as the Taylor engines did. They seem to have died a death now.
so. If I can get it in, that's the bed.
Yeah, that's the finished bed plate. You say that's actually high grade aluminium, but I mean they could easily be made cast iron.
There's another view.
Quite a compact engine for its size, but nice and leggy. I thought the trouble with Taylor engines was they're a bit short on the conrod length.
Oh, sorry.
Even though I've got one in my boat.
Close those by accident.
So I made a start on the cylinders drawings, which if anybody's interested, I'd be willing to complete, and so you know there's a complete thing there. The second one, sorry, there's a single and there's a twin available. That was the twin that you've just seen. Quite a good little engine. And then the third one we've been donated is Fillmore's set of patterns, and is a drawing, inverted commas. To be honest with you, I'm not very happy with it. I don't think it's a very good thing myself, but you know, other people might. Other people have built them and modified them to suit their own needs. But given the choice, I'd go for the Ian Cross one.
But I think it's important to reiterate there, John, that it'll probably stay in a partially finished state unless somebody actually decides they want to buy some.
But at the moment, yes, because I've got these ex Ken Woodham engines that I'm working on now. If you don't and never heard the name, Ken Woodham's a famous model engineer who actually used to work for Ian McAlpine, and he made a few things that were a bit strange, and then he went to live in the Isle of Man, and he's become a recluse as far as I know. Anyway, these three sets of fully machined engines, big engines, 12 horsepower, we're going for grabs at what's it called, Station Road Steam at Lincoln. And I convinced two of my Scottish friends that we ought to buy them all three between us. And the idea that I'd finish the first one and iron out the problems, and then the other two would each build their own. But whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. I might end up making all three if I live long enough. But they were fully machined. Well, they weren't fully machined, but they were 95% machined, and also very accurately made. But we're getting a bit off piece now, aren't we, with this?
And then lastly, we've got the drawings for the T2. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're actually my drawings. I mean, Cyril Taylor's drawings were famous for being vague. And I did a set of drawings that I was expecting the SBA would take up and buy all the patterns and start it, but they didn't. And the guy who used to cast them somewhere in the Fens, he's now packed up, and he's sold all patterns he's got to somewhere called the Engineers Emporium. You know what it is? Emporium. Yeah. And they are about as much use as a one-leg man in a bottom kicking contest, as far as I know. I've never had any direct dealings with them, but you know.
So here we got some sample drawings. So this was for the one that John and Ian created, so you can sort of see the style of thing. Is that visible enough? I think it probably is.
Yeah, yeah. The sorry, somebody wants to say something. Oh, I just doodled out the cylinders. They're using piston valves, which is my favourite thing. I would never build another engine for myself. They didn't have piston valves. They're so much better, in my view. And the amount of running hours that these things do, I can't see point of not having them. But that's, you know, my own personal view. But yeah, it'd make a nice engine, that.
We've also got that example of Phil Moore's drawings, which is here.
Yeah, I believe he was a builder.
With bricks and mortar, you mean?
Yeah. Not saying anymore.
But that's that. And then we've also got the drawings for the Taylor T2 that John produced. All of those are for sale. And so then there's the patterns that sort of go with that. So, John, do you want to walk through these?
Yeah, these are Ian's patterns for the that first engine. This is a single cylinder bed plate, 2-cylinder bed plate. A lot of common parts for those. The entablature plates, they're fairly conventional 4-column or 6-column engines. The cast conrod, which is interesting, that'd be SGI, of course.
The advantage of SGI is it's sort of shock-proof, is the way the foundry describes it. It's curious stuff to machine. I mean, just made this vertical pump because it's quite definitely halfway between cast iron and steel. So it produces spirally swarfed when you drill holes in it and stuff, and then it still covers you in filth, just like it was real cast iron. Centric straps.
Yeah, these links are the well, what I'd call the box tape type ones. where the running surface is actually a slot in the middle that doesn't go right through, if that's perhaps a bad way of describing it.
So you clear it
Used a lot on American engines, particularly American Navy engines.
And then we haven't got pictures of all of these, but we've got a full set of things. You can find these on the website. It's easy to see if you're thinking of it. There's a pretty comprehensive set there. Again, there's a link at the bottom that will produce a similar looking email, I would imagine, any second now. It looks very much the same. And you just fill it in and send it off, and we'll give you a quote. Which I think, do we have any questions on the engine stuff before we go off and do hulls? No.
Oh, sorry. Just a quick one.
Yeah.
For someone contemplating building an engine, how do they size it against a hull that they might already have, or a displacement, if they know what the weight of the boat might be? And how do you sort of think of a, is there some formulation equations in the web pages that give you an idea how to size an engine in terms of boiler requirement? You mentioned 5 nominal horsepower on one of the engines. So, do you have a rule of thumb for grate area and heating surfaces and all the rest of it?
I would recommend looking on the register at comparable boats and seeing what they're fitted with.
Yeah.
That's a fair comment. When I built mine, John King provided me with vast tables of all sorts of things on props and stuff. I think there's some amount in the Steamboat Handbook, isn't there? Have you got a copy?
I believe I have, yes. Yes, I shall go and have a look. Okay. Thank you very much.
I mean, the only other information I can give you is that I've got a small leak compound. That's in a 29-foot, 3-ton steam yacht. And it's okay. It's not fast, is it, John? He's not answering. But it has the sort of profile of a car transporter. And the large leak compounds tend to appear in narrowboats.
Right.
Like Whistle Down the Wind's got one, I think.
Yes, and so has that boat that's just been sold.
Tixall.
Tixall, yes.
And Emily Ann has also got a leak compound.
Okay.
So that's 3 of the 9 narrowboats have got the leak compound. But also Adamant has got a compound of a very similar size. It's a historic, I think it's a Cochrane Boilers made it or something bizarre like that, but or locally made. But it's again, it's very similar dimensions to the leak compound. If anyone's interested in the large leak and how that goes in a narrowboat.
Yeah, I did the last overhaul on Tixall on the engine anyway, and yeah, it was all right. It was made by got his name,
Anthony Beaver.
Anthony Beaver, indeed.
Who also made Emily Ann's engine. I think he only made 2 large leaks, but he made both of them. Some differences between them, pros and cons, as is a slightly later one. But yes, Tixall's engine's running very nicely at the moment.
When I started, I was tossing up between the 6A and the leak, and I came to the conclusion the leak was a lot more substantial. And some of them you don't need to wear ear defenders on, but we haven't reached that point with Beaver yet.
Right. Okay. So the reason I'm asking, I'm in the process of refitting Jabberwocky that Bonfire Morris had. Is it Bonfire Morris? Something like nickname. Mike Morris up in Cheshire. So it's got a Dave Benyon double high in it. I'm struggling to remember what the dimensions of that are. The boiler was built by Alan Shrewsbury, along with the rest of the boat. at rates about 100 psi, and it struck me having I've got a half-scale traction engine with a single-cylinder engine that runs at 185 psi, and knowing how gutless that is at 100 psi, I just wondered whether I'd be wasting my time refitting it with the boiler that's in it, and I ought to probably just bite the bullet and go for a more powerful boiler. It's 18 foot long and it weighs, I think, 1.2 tons in the water.
I'm, as people will know, I'm a considerable fan of John King's designs. They're very easy to make, and they come in 2 and 3 drum versions. And certainly John Richardson has a Yarrow like mine in a similar size boat.
Right.
You know, and 250 psi, as you say, gives you a bit more to play with, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
So hulls then.
So just one, if I can just have a moment on this. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, John.
So I keep trying to switch my picture on and off rather than my audio. It's just age, you know. My advice to anybody contemplating what you've just been talking about, Trevor, and that is to think of the boiler relative to the hull. Forget about the engine. If the boiler's the right size for the hull, then you can put any old engine on. You know, it's more important to match the boiler up with the hull, in my view.
Yeah, I think those are wise words, John. There's an awful lot of under boiler boats around, aren't there? So for a feel, I mean, if we're not going to talk about boiler designs, but you know, they've got all their surface areas, and Beefer's runs 30 square foot, but it's oil fired, and it's under boilered as it is. I think I could put a bigger burner in it. In fact, I'm sure I could, but just feel for it. Glenn Lancaster Jones's family bequeathed the library of hull designs to us, and that covers 3. More than 3. Dawn, Diana, and Athena, who are first 2 of which are double-ended boats, as it says. And we've also got single sheet drawings for Melissa, 20-foot counterstone. Have you been? John, do you want to talk about these?
Sorry, I think it's Melisande, not Melissa.
Right.
Never mind. Well, I don't know that much about them. I mean, Dawn and Diana was his first thing, which was serialized in engineering in miniature way back in the day. And of course, they were made from plywood, fairly basic shapes before everybody got into strip planking. And so once the strip planking idea took hold, they seem to have died off a bit. But these could perfectly sound boats, and they're easy to make, I believe. And I hate woodwork and will not ever touch it with a barge pole. So you're not really asking the right person about that.
Although grayling is made in a similar way and performs perfectly well, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I didn't make the hull.
No, but it is the same.
Well, yes, basic plywood hull, yeah, but hard chine. Yeah.
And the last one there, which is interesting, we've only got a proposal drawing for, is a paddle steamer. I've seen a version of Minerva came over from Switzerland at Windermere, and that was quite a fun thing. Steamed
Yes, indeed. It was a nice boat. Weird people, but a nice boat.
General description of Switzerland, I think. And so we do sets of drawings for, say, Dawn and Diana, and Ariel and Athena. The others are just single sheets, partial stuff. And again,
with the drawing sets, Malcolm, is there a are the parameters relating to sort of how much machine or mass of machinery they'll carry, that sort of thing? How would you go about working out if that all the sort of parameters related to beyond drawings, as it were?
John, do you have anything you want to say, or I can provide you?
Not really in my field again. Yeah, I mean, the other dimensions are there. You could work it out using the naval architect's basic system. Nowadays, I think it can be done very easily, but it's not really something I've studied.
I've got a book which, if somebody reminds me, I'll send a reference to, that discusses all of the, marine architecture issues of hulls and design and stuff. I had some fascinating conversations with Selway Fisher when I chose one of their strip plank hulls to build, and he clearly had no idea. He told me how much the machinery weighed, and I said, "Is that a steam engine or a diesel engine?" He said, "Oh, pretty much the same." and neither figure was anywhere near reality. So, but these have all been steam launches, so these are definitely sound. And as Kevin suggests, if you look in register, you could probably find hulls with similar. But there are naval architects in the club who could help. Can't say more than that, really.
Oh, thanks.
But I will find, I didn't see who it was who asked, but whoever it was, I will find a reference to that book if you tell me, or email me is easiest, and I'll find a reference to the book that I bought that's very comprehensive in terms of sorting out scantlings for what you're making the boat out of, and how you calculate displacement and all those sort of things without having a computer program. I think that's everything we intended to cover. Brian, what would you like us to do? Stop or do something else?
Well, I think as we've certainly got a few minutes till, I think we can go till 9:30 on the Zoom, but certainly till 9 o'clock. I would say go on to your other topics, which is maybe the boiler designs.
Yeah, I mean,
which we sort of touched on anyway, I think, in a way, haven't we? In terms
parts
of
of them, yeah. So ordering is pretty much the same, except these sort of fixed price things. And we basically got boilers that you would recognise in the fleet. So, John, you should better talk about these than me. We've got a set of vertical fire tube boilers.
Yeah, they obviously, as you could see, they go up in size from about 18-inch. This is the fire tubes, 18-inch diameter, up to. Can you just scroll down the page? I think it's up to 26.
BFT says.
That's they were all designed, apart from 104, they were all designed by David Beale. The late David Beale was a very good engineer. 105 has been modified by Kevin Slater, who's with us tonight. And they're sound boilers. They're a bit heavy for what they do, but yeah, they're fairly bomb-proof, if that's not a silly way of putting it.
And by clicking on the pictures on the website, you can get a bigger version if that makes life easier for you. So you get a feel for them.
The one thing is, two things that you've got to watch, though. I would say, my advice: don't try and make one yourself. Not one of those, anyway. A, you need to be a coded welder, and B, you need to have a fairly good idea what you're on about. So it's best to get one of the experts to make one.
This is not a stick welder in the garage kind of job, is it?
No. If you do want to make your own, well, then these water tube boilers are a better idea. Say these 3-drum and 2-drum ones were designed by John King.
This is the 2-drum.
That's a 2-drum. Yeah, I've assembled the 2-drum one with the pressure vessel made very competently by Kevin there. Not for me, for a customer. Excellent.
And then there's a Babcock, which requires some sort of CNC level machining to make the headers. But other than
Oh, yeah, I mean, you could do it on a Bridgeport, but I think your arms would be ready for dropping off by the time you've finished.
it's true.
They ought to be CNC. I see Kevin shaking his head there. They really are, the headers are really a CNC job.
But the 2 and 3-drum ones are, I've made 3 of these, and they're very easy. You know, you need a bit of patience. We called the Lecky board in after we'd made the drums for all 3 of them because we thought the meter had broken and lost its calibration, but they checked it and pointed out the reason our electric bill had tripled was because I'd spent a month on the milling machine drilling the holes. So 200 and odd tubes. You can make these in a variety of lengths. In fact, you can make them in any length. But there have been them made with sort of 15 sets of tubes, and then I think out mine's 21, and I've seen them longer. They are drawn here as coal-fired, but we put an oil-fired burner between the mud drums, and that works. Roger Heisey's boat, Etna, has a Yarrow of the similar style, but he mounts the burner much lower down in effectively the ash pan, but I didn't want to be in the bilges. So. But they're very doable, and you know, sound. We've got sort of heading for 10 years with that.
How do you get the tubes in then? They're copper tubes, aren't they?
They're conifer.
Conifer, yeah. And are they expanded in or?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, just to, you know, because they're 13, no, not 13, 11 and a bit mil, I think. You have to think about it a bit, because you don't put one in that you can't get out or whatever. But yeah. Nigel actually did all the tube bending. He made a jig at his place in Sussex and had a long weekend bending 600 and some tubes, and then they just slot in. We went through the discussion about whether it was worth reaming the holes, and John King had done a bunch of research on that and concluded it wasn't necessary. And so I just drilled all mine on Rambowdy mill as it happens, because it was long enough to get the whole thing in and do it all in one setting. And I just drilled them with a stub drill, and then you put the tubes in place by hand. They're not hard to go in, they just fit.
Right.
A bit of jiggling, and then you get a normal tube expander. But what you need to do is to rig a thing. It's like something that will drive the tube expander, and with a portable hand drill on the other end and a length of bicycle chain, because getting down the drums is hard. But it was a day to do each one. And once I'd expanded the row I missed, they came out perfectly sound and went through a 500 PSI test, bone dry. So
good,
very doable. The thing to note is they're particularly well suited to oil firing because, of course, they've not got much water in them. And so we have a pressure switch on it. So when it gets up to actually about 225, the burner cuts off and it just manages the pressure there. With a coal fire, you've got a bit more management to do because, you know, it's quite a quick responding boiler. But having said that, John Richardson has exactly one of these in his boat and does perfectly well. He's probably a better fireman than I am. So.
I would always recommend a vertical fire tube for a first timer or an inexperienced steamer. They are more passive, easier to manage, coal-fired or oil or gas-fired.
Right.
Certainly true of coal. I mean, oil-fired, I'd turn the switch on and then I'd turn it off at the end of the day. Everything else is done by the electronics. So it's,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
it's coal-fired, it's much more difficult.
Hmm.
Sorry, we're looking at that. So we were going down. So we've got a selection of water tube ones. As we say, we've got 2 Yarrow types, a small and a large. Then some welded Yarrow types, which is what Anachronism has in it. And that is a very fast boat. How long is it, John?
It's a good question. 28 foot, I think.
Yeah.
And it'll do 10 knots. It will really motor. When he puts enough coal on.
Yes.
When we first got it going, he thought, well, it's not really producing as much. I said, well, that's because you're not putting enough coal on, you know. It's a big boiler. It's a number 10 there, WTB 10, about 60 square feet, I think, thereabouts.
And when he first fitted the boat out, he had coal bunkers that were the size of a scuttle, and not enough to light it, let alone go anywhere.
But the last time he went out, he's sort of getting his hand in now, and it really motored along.
Yeah, he sent me a Google Maps, 3D replay, and it was well over 10 mile an hour. So it was 10 knots, rather. It was a very rapid piece of kit. So if you need larger 3-drum welded boilers, that's those things. This sort of 2-drum doesn't have the complicated headers of the Babcock. Chris Davis has got one of these in him, hasn't he?
Yes, he's made one, and as I say, Kevin made a pressure vessel, which I finished off for a boat called Williamette, which has been about 20 years being rebuilt, and it's still ongoing. But I hope to see it before I die. He's certainly made a fantastic job of it.
Unlike the Yarrows, they come with either 6-inch or 8-inch steam drums. So feel free.
Yeah.
45 square foot.
The one on Williamette, that's also oil fired.
Right.
By the way.
Yeah, the decision for me was we were going to put it on the Solent, and you can wander into any marina and find a diesel pump. Finding half a ton of nutty slack is a harder job, so and you don't have to carry it. Locomotive type, I think this is what Nigel's got. Oh yes, in Anna Jane. Substantial piece of kit.
Yeah, there's a few of these about.
That's quite heavy.
They're equivalent of a vertical fire tube, I would say.
Sort of 1/4 of a ton.
Uh,
So I mean that's the huge difference.
I think the original one was built for Arlette, wasn't it?
I don't know that job, but yes.
Yeah, it's a Smith's job.
I mean that's a substantial difference. Is that you're looking at sort of 1/4 of a ton, whereas we weighed beefers. Oh, no, I didn't write it down. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, that's a fire tube. So they're sort of 300 kilos, so 1/3 of a ton for that. Whereas if you look at these, then 180 kilos. So, and that's with all the fittings and everything. That's as it was lifted into the boat. That's the big difference. And then we've got this, which is a interesting thing.
Yeah, I've never actually seen this, but the one that's extant, Chris Davis has seen it and says it's quite something. I mean, the original Cochrane types, they were in Clyde puffers, they were in workshops, factories, everywhere. This is it says it's a Cochrane type, but it's not really what I call a Cochrane type, in so much as the firebox is not surrounded by water. But apparently, according to Chris, who knows a thing or two about boilers, he said it was a good home.
So it's almost like a wet back Scotch boiler, isn't it? Is that no?
No.
Okay.
It's like a Cochrane boiler.
Right. Good. Well, that's definitely all I had on my list to talk about. So probably anybody got any other questions? Oh, Al's got his hand up. Sorry, I didn't notice that for a long time. Mr. Dunlop, we can't hear you. Let me see if I can turn your microphone on. No, your microphone's on. It's just not working.
Oh, Malcolm, it's Richard Bartrop. Just to say that Cochrane type was what David Harding had in Mudlark.
Oh, was it?
Well, yeah. I don't know where Mudlark is now, but it went very well with a big engine.
It did. The very first steamboat we ever went on.
Yeah.
The scary bit was that he tended not to pay a lot of attention, so we very collected some large plastic boats on the solar.
Can you hear me?
Typical David.
This is Al. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Al.
Ah, great. Does anyone ever silver solder their tubes in say the Yarrow or Yarrow-like boilers? I've got one that I've been using for 25 years with it silver soldered together, and another one that I've just made, and wondering if anyone in the UK does that.
John? We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I switched myself. I forget. Not that I know of. I mean, we do have silver soldered boilers. In theory, they should work all right if they're as long as you don't boil them dry. But we find that expanding the tubes is a very good thing, and it's easy. You know, if you do have a problem, then you can always change them.
Yeah.
I had a Beaver boiler, still got it in the garage, and a very small Beaver boiler, and that was silver soldered tubes.
Yeah, Anthony Beaver made quite a few all soldered boilers.
Yeah, it's a
But
little bit.
we don't have any in our books at the moment because there's nothing that they superseded really by these modern things. Yeah,
I've silver soldered a couple boilers together. One's 55 square feet of heating surface area, and another one's about 30 square feet of heating surface area. And although the silver solder, because I'm using 45% silver, is a little bit expensive, like $300-400 per boiler for the silver solder alone. I've been having very good luck with it. And I did once run slightly dry, and it pushed out a plug in the end of a 3/4 inch diameter tube. But it was very simple to just heat it up, and the silver solder flowed back together, and everything was great. So it does actually have benefits in that if you do run dry, it's more likely to melt the silver solder and not damage your boiler.
Yes, I imagine that's a good point. I've actually boiled my boat dry once. When I had a water tube boiler, but all I had to do then was re-expand all the tubes, and that seemed to get away with that. Wasn't really my fault. The feed check failed, which brings me on to another point that I always recommend personally, that your feed checks should go into the steam drum and not at the bottom. If it with a water tube boiler, if you put your feed water in the boiler at the bottom in the mud drums, that works fine. But if they fail, you could lose the lot, and that happened to me in the middle of capital of Scotland.
Glasgow.
I don't think people in Scotland are like you say that.
Okay.
Edinburgh, of course. Edinburgh. In the middle of Edinburgh, just firing up, and all of a sudden, all the water disappeared. And here I am stuck in the dock.
Boilers going dry is something that nobody really wants to have happen. In my case, the filter for the pump got clogged, and so the pump was not pumping because it was drawing a vacuum. And a few minutes later in a water tube boiler, you're going to find out.
Yes, this is true. This is one reason to not have one. But then, they've got other benefits. So there you go. You probably get away with it with a vertical fire tube, but you don't, I'm afraid, with it. You've got to keep your eye on the water level.
Yeah.
A different question that I have is I have patterns for, and drawings for an engine, and I have the offsets for my hulls, and I'm happy to think about donating them if there's a repository that people would wouldn't mind having other people's drawings or models or whatever in. So is that something that you're likely to set up, is that other people can start contributing?
Well, all of the stuff we've got has been contributed from all sorts of people over the years. We saw your offer via Brian, and we talked about it, and I think we're a bit unsure, because the fact of the matter is that not many people are building very much at the moment. So we've got drawings of all the things, that would be appropriate, but we're not seeing them built. So the SBAS taking more on doesn't seem useful. But I would suggest that you talk to Brian Smith, because he's sort of SBA archivist, and he might be able to help you. What I was going to do was to just play, because somebody asked about expanding tubes, and here's a video of Nigel expanding the tubes into one of the arrows we made. So you can see he's got a hand drill with a thing with a lumber chain on it. I think we might get it out of it so you can see it. So lumber bicycle chain, that's the expander sticking out the tube. You just pull it out, put in the next one. We did a bunch of trial runs into blanks to find out how far in the mandrel had to go to get the right level of compression on the tube, the right level of reduction in thickness. And then you just do that one. So you can see how long it takes to do each. And then you can just multiply that by 206 times and 2 ends. And that's what it took. Brian, I think we're there, unless you've got anything else.
Sorry. Trevor, carry on.
A very quick one. So in the British codes for boilers, I've only seen this on the model traction engine side of things, but silver soldered boilers are limited to 100 psi. Don't know if that's why it should be that. And then the other thing is, I happen to have my father's project, which is a 3-drum boiler, 3-drum, possibly 5 drums if you count the top headers, which is rated for 100 horsepower steam turbine. He was going to build a tractor. Unfortunately, he never got to build the thing, having passed away last May. So that's a partial build. If someone was itching to build something fairly interesting, it's a water-walled construction, thimble tubes under the steam drum, which has a dry back and flue tubes running through it. So it's designed for superheat with a preheater in the chimney stack. I've got loads and loads of calculations relating to it, and loads of calculations relating to steam turbines. But you know, it's just throwing it out there in case someone has a mad idea they want to produce a steam turbine or a steam turbiner boat. This might be the very thing.
Well, that's a thing I've had in the back of my mind for a long time, Trevor. We should probably talk.
I'm happy to. So it's basically at the moment it's sat here in Telford in Shropshire, but I say I've got I can get dimensions and various other bits for it. My plan was to build it up as a working boiler, just to see if it would produce the power that Dad talked about. And the only way we talked about doing that was to basically have the thing blowing off at a working pressure and measure the quantity of water consumed over a period of a half an hour or something. However, I can't imagine the neighbours will want to hear this thing roaring away at 250 psi through a 2-inch safety valve, at full chat. So I'm not quite sure how else you do it. But yeah, he's got lots of drawings, and it was something that was designed by my dad and sort of verified, if you like, or vetted by was it Haig, a railway boiler engineer from the days of steam in on BR. He's written books about the subject, so we think it's probably quite close to being doing what it was intended to do.
Excellent.
But,
we should talk later.
Okay, no problem. The only thing I would say is if it's anything like his Sentinel steam lorry, we used to do, that was a Sentinel ERF, so a Sentinel engine and boiler out of a shunter in an ERF chassis, and that used to consume coal at the prodigious rate of 100 weight every 12 minutes.
Excellent.
Anyway, there we go.
Malcolm,
Right.
could I ask? Quite a lot of the boiler design disappeared from the website about, I don't know, 12 months ago. What the boiler I've got was one of them, and I was just wondering what that was all about.
Well, when Julian left us, he was librarian previously, and John picked up that task. And we basically went through all the drawings and all the certification and everything else and said, are these fit for sale? Not in an engineering sense, but are they drawings that you could reasonably build anything from? Are they in a usable quality? Have we got the proper certifications behind them? And so for a variety of reasons, John might want to say more on this, we concluded that some of them were sort of in a B list that we didn't want to sell because we figured people just could come back and complain about the qualities of the drawings or the unavailability of design certification, etc. That was all.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Well, Malcolm and John, thanks a lot for taking us through that. It's something I'd wondered about, these pages in the SBAS area of the website, and I think it's interesting to get a bit more description of the items in terms of what potential they offer to make something of them. So thanks a lot for that. Thanks for your time, and thanks everybody for joining and the interesting discussion.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much for organising it, Brian.
Yeah, the next Midlands Zoom will be on the 28th of October, leaving the summer free, and I'll send something round about that shortly. That will be about injectors and ejectors.
Many thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Malcolm, John, and Brian for organising. Thank you.
Shall I press the end button, Brian?
Yes, I think so. Thank you. Thank you. That's it's all very interesting. Thanks.
Excellent. Good night, all.
All right.